Hi, Paul. Are you okay?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm not too bad, thanks. Do you want to introduce yourself to us?
Yes, indeed. I'm Paul Daine, MD of Premium Collections based in Timperley. Um, that's me. You want to expand on what we
Well,
do
the next
and
the next
what we're
que-
about?
the next question is how did you become to be Premium Collections?
Oof, right, okay. Well, right from a very early age, I got into banking and financial services. So when I left school at 16, I joined a bank, which was the done thing at the time back in the early
Yeah,
80s. Um, Stayed there for a few years, got a good grounding in finance and banking matters, and even cut my teeth a little bit on a bit of credit control.
right.
I worked with about half a dozen people in the bank, and none of them liked the idea of having to. Back then, you had to visit your bank account customers that were delinquent. So I volunteered,
Right.
and that's what got me started in credit management. I then worked for Swinton Insurance Group for 6 years, which was
Know it well.
very interesting, very broad remit, so that was good. And then I ended up in Germany for a while. I worked for one of the largest debt collection agencies in the world at one of their bases in Germany, and got a little bit homesick. Came home and started Premium Collections back in 2002. So 18 years in the making. Whether this coronavirus will be the undoing, we'll have to wait and see, won't we?
It
But
will.
yeah, I'd love to say it's business as usual,
Yeah.
but it's not at the moment.
No, no, not for
Um,
anybody. No.
Things are quiet, things are a bit different, but we've still got a job to do, so we'll crack on.
Great. And at the Business Network, we like to know something personal about our members. So I've got one or two questions that are away from business. So
Okay.
hobbies, passions, what do you do in your spare time?
Oh, I often say I don't really have a great deal of spare time, but if I do, my passion for many a year has been football. Was heavily involved in Altrincham Football Club as commercial director for 8 years. I'm no longer on the board at the football club, but I'm still vice president. Um, Still very passionate about the football, although of course there isn't any football at the moment. So we can't enjoy that either. Other hobbies, I like reading. Watch an awful lot of TV. I like films. What else? Motorsport,
Right.
another big passion of mine.
Yeah.
I've been to many Grand Prix over the years. Been to Le Mans several times. Of course, there's none of that at the moment either.
Yeah. No, but we've got
But
esports. We've got esports now on the
yeah,
F1 channel.
I haven't bothered as yet looking at watching that. I like the real thing, I like to
Yeah,
be able to
yes.
smell it, feel it, touch it.
Yeah,
So yes, I probably will have a look at that as the programming on TV gets even worse on a day-to-day
yeah,
basis.
yeah, great. So I like listening to podcasts. Do you listen to podcasts? Any you want to recommend?
I'll be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan, but if I were to listen to any, it would be anything on Radio 1.
Right.
Although I'll make one exception. I'm not a fan of Gemma Collins. She does a podcast on Radio 1, so I avoid that one. Of course, there's always the Peter Crouch podcast, which is
Yeah,
quite a famous one. I think lots of people like that one.
that that has
Um,
already been brought up. Yes, that one's
yeah, and that's very widely advertised. You see that on billboards in Manchester these
yeah,
days. So it's
yeah.
obviously a good podcast, and of course football related to an extent. So anything to do with football is worth having a listen to these days.
Okay, okay. And you mentioned reading. Is there a book we should all be reading while we're in confinement?
Um, I read quite a lot of books. I read everything by John Grisham.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I would always recommend anything at all by John Grisham. Although I've probably got more time these days, so I can keep up to date with him. Normally, he can write a book faster than I can read one.
Yes.
So he does pop them out on a regular basis. And if it's not Grisham, then I would say autobiographies, but typically sporting autobiographies.
Right.
So any footballing legends or motor racing legends. You might just be able to see a load of books behind me.
Yeah, I can see one of a certain manager there. So
anything like that. But also sporting reporters. Derek Potter, who worked in sports journalism for many years. I have his book, and was very fortunate to get it signed by him many years ago. So anything like that, anything sporting related, I'm happy to read.
Great. And finally, any words of wisdom in this current time? I think with your debt recovery hat on would be interesting.
Right. Okay. Well, with the debt recovery hat on, I would say keep in touch with your clients. At the end of the day, your clients are your lifeblood. But at the moment, you might have a number of clients that aren't paying you. I have to confess, and it's quite ironic, even in our industry, we have clients that aren't paying or are asking for extended terms. I don't have a problem with that. I'd rather keep the client. So if you've got a client and they haven't paid you, have a chat with them. Send them a quick email, give them a quick call, talk to them, talk about what your problems are at the moment. So, for example, if your problem is you're not getting paid, that's the obvious one.
Yes.
And if they say that they're struggling as well, they can't pay, then perhaps just say, well, how about you pay something on account? If you're owed £500, ask them to pay you 50. Just get the ball rolling, keep things ticking over. But I think communication is the most important factor there. Keep in touch with them. Make sure that if they are working still, that if there's anything you can help them with, anything they can reciprocate with you, and keep that communication channel open. I think when things get back to normal, it might be that everybody's mad busy trying to catch up, trying to find new sales and collect outstanding sales. But if you haven't had that interim communication, I believe it'd be much harder to start the ball rolling again. So constantly keep in touch, maybe on a weekly basis, just a quick email or a phone call, ask them how they're doing.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you, Paul, for doing this. We're going to be putting this out on the social media channels in the next couple of days. But thank you very much for taking part.
It's a pleasure. I'll speak to you again soon.